For this demo, we're going to take a real-world example from a customer. In this case, it's a group called USAC, or the Universal Service Administrative Code. It's a federal agency. They asked us to build a pattern that would allow them to, instead of looking at information in sort of this tabular format, they want to be able to query this table in an easy way, so they can look up what's called a billing entity and get some funding information about it. So let's take a look at how it would be built in Signal Pattern. The first thing you have to do in this particular case, like most cases, is you have to dig down and find where the API is for the data. Luckily, they have it right here, so view source data. And this goes to their platform. This platform is called Socrata. It's a well-known company that a lot of municipalities and federal agencies use. And the idea here is you've got lots of different data sets and so on. But the most important part is that the data that was coming, or the data that's being used for that graph and table, is coming from an API that's listed right here. And depending on what API you use, you'll have to go and find this endpoint, or however you find it. There's also no authentication required for this because this is public, so we'll keep it simple. So what I can do is copy the API API endpoint, and then if I go to Signal Pattern and I go to my account, all I have to do is create a new pattern. So create new, and drop in that API call. And what will happen is Signal Pattern will automatically run the query, right? So you'll see the output here. Now, the interesting thing is that the return is something like 20,000 rows, some huge number, and they don't want to have to do that. I mean, I'll show you what, if we did just want to give them the ability to select one using a drop-down, it would be kind of unwieldy, but it would look like this. What you could do is create a new line here. These individual lines are called signals. This entire document is called a pattern. So I would say, what billing entity with two question marks makes it a question. And instead of having him fill in a form, I can have a drop down by just collecting or selecting advanced. And then I can literally just drag in. So the billing entity name is right here. I could drag that down into the options part. It has the array index in there, but if I get rid of the array index, then it will just basically give me everything here. But you'll see this is a ginormous list, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So the idea would be, why don't we ask them for some selection criteria, some small amount of search data, winnow this list down, and then put the result in a dropdown and let them choose that. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So the first thing we have to do, and I won't go into the details as to how I figured this out, but it's in the documentation for Socrata, is that you can do query parameters, like a lot of query parameters. You just question mark, and then you can put an actual endpoint name here, like state. And if I put in state equals, and if I put IL, then of course you would expect it just returns the ILs in Illinois, and that's how it works. But they also, another way of doing things, which is kind of interesting, where if I put Q equals, I can put in a string here. So if I put in IL, it will also return the results of a string search. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to make that a term that I can have somebody input. So I'll say term, search term, and I'll say what search term, again, 2 question marks. I'll put in this variable you put a curly bracket, term, curly bracket. And now I can put this above here. If I put in, I know it will work, let's say Elm. What it will do is not work. I'm not sure why. Okay, so I figured out why. It's because you have to put a little $sign in there. And so if you put that in, then now you can have a term as a search component. So I put in Elm, and it now gives me just the results that have the word Elm in it. It could be anywhere, which is kind of a nice feature of this API. And so now what the result is if I look here, it's only going to be the ones that have matched the criteria for the search criteria, right? Search a term. If I put in something else, I know that haste is another one. Then it will just have it'll just have the ones for that particular selection, okay? And so now what they wanted was the ability to put in a search, select one, and then have the information coming from it that is specific to that selection. So what we can do is we can make this API query again. Now what we're going to want to do, though, is that when I select one, I don't want to have the billing entity name be the search component, because I don't know if that's unique, but this Ben is. So what I can do is when I'm selecting, what I want to do is make it the Ben, so I can select the name, but then have the Ben returned, so I can get rid of the index. And so now, instead of having this here, like this, I put Ben equals, and then use this S2 dot value. And so that will be the term that I selected. Okay, so I come here, Hastings Memorial Library. What I should see here is Hastings Memorial Library, and that's the only thing I get, right? So that's good. And then what I want from that is the readout. What I want is the name of the entity. I want the budget. These are all things that they told me they wanted. I want the budget, the funded amount. I want the the pending amount, and I want the available amount. Okay, so there you have it. Now I can use markup if I want to, format it a little bit better so it looks a little bit nicer in terms of just size and so on. I can get crazy if I want. I can actually use all HTML5 formatting if I want. Clearly, I want to be able to make this dollar sign, and I'm going to jump ahead and show you how that looks instead of watching me type it. This is a finished version of it, and you'll see that there's some JSONata. If you remember, I was talking about JSONata as a library. There's some JSONata special formatting in here which you can use to do the formatting. So if I come in using this, you'll see that it works, right? And then it formats it properly here. And that's pretty much it. And now what you can do is you can make it searchable. So I did USAC lookup. And now this is available through just a normal search engine on signal pattern. So here it is, search term, haste, Adams, right? Then we're done. And it can make this available through SMS and Slack and all the other things. But I think it's a nice example of how you can combine multiple API calls, one serving the other, do some formatting and build something real quick. So hope that was informative.